How would you like to make a bread that takes very little kneading, if any at all? You don't have to proof the yeast, and it can be ready in just over an hour. Intrigued? You're watching The Bare Pantry Show. Welcome to The Bare Pantry Show. If you want to learn how to cook in simple steps and have your dishes come out great the first time, then you're in the right place. Learn to make restaurant-style meals, comfort foods, and authentic Belizean dishes from basic ingredients. Yes, I'm going back to my roots. Remember when I used to say that phrase many years ago? You're watching The Bare Pantry Show. I'm going to start saying it again, okay? Before we get into the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so that you can know when I upload something else. And if you came over from my Facebook platform, welcome to this platform. Thank you for taking the leap. Look around because the videos are easier to find here, and I have over 1,200 videos here already, all right? Now, I have a brand new collaboration that I'm doing right now, and this is with Colorblind TV in Belize. So you will start seeing my show on that network. You're going to have to check your local listings to see when and where. And of course, I look forward to you coming back to tell me, Miss Babs, I saw you on TV, all right? This is the only collab that I've approved. If you see me on anybody else's TV in Belize, they're stealing from me, point blank, period. Now let's get into this thing right here. So I've tried this recipe, well, not this recipe. I've tried to make monkey bread years ago. The bread came out too dense for monkey bread, and so I just scrapped that recipe, but I found one recently. My cousin Cindy sent it to me. I've modified this a bit because it calls for powdered milk, and I'm not doing that because I'm lactose intolerant, so I switched it out to vanilla pudding. But I've tried the recipe twice yesterday. I tried the full recipe, which fits in this pan. This is one of my big Bundt pans. This is another Bundt pan, but this is a smaller one. I think that recipe is too much for this. It'll just like swell over. And I think I'm gonna look this up and tell you what sizes these are, like ounces or quarts or whatever. And then I tried it, oh, I don't have my little thing here. I'll show you guys. I tried it in my little 6-inch Bundt pan. And let me pause right now to show you what those two monkey breads look like. This is the full size Bundt pan, and this is a big Bundt pan too. I'm gonna have to tell you guys the size. Looks pretty good, right? You don't have to put the glaze if you don't want to. And then I made the mini one. Aww, everything's more pretty when it's mini. Gorgeous, right? I ran and I got my little pan just now. So this pan is tiny. I don't know if you can see how tiny it is in the camera compared to like this. All right, so if you are living alone, or it's just you and maybe 1 or 2 more people, and you don't want to have a lot of these sweet things because you're trying to get your health back, this is the perfect book for you guys, all right? It's going to be teeny tiny stuff. I don't know what I'm going to name the book. I'm going to ask you guys to help me name that book. So let me put these pans out the way, because what I'm going to do, we're not going to make this one. This one's the full recipe. This one's the quarter recipe. What I'm going to try to do today, try not to make the pans make noise, I'm going to be doing a 5x9 loaf pan. Everybody has one of these, right? If you don't, they're cheap at Walmart. Don't get this, try not to make noise. Don't get this little one. This one's like 4.5 by 8. It's too tiny. Get this one, okay? So let's start at the very beginning. So first of all, we're going to need all-purpose flour, but it's going to be divided. Whenever you see a recipe says that something is divided, look in the method right away to see how it needs to be divided, okay? So first of all, it's 2 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. See right here? So I'm going to dump it in my bowl. This is 1 cup, okay? So now this is the next cup and 1/4. That's going to be left out for later. So that's why the thing says divided, okay? Now let's go with the rest of the ingredients. The next ingredient is sugar, and it's 2 tablespoons of granulated white sugar. And the salt, set this aside. Why? Because salt retards the activation of yeast. So you don't want to put the salt yet, all right? Now, normally people will buy yeast by the 3-pack, you know, the active dry yeast. Don't get the rapid rise. It's active dry, and it comes like 3 packs together. You open one of those packs, and it's just about a tablespoon, okay? So one of those 3 packs should be like 3 tablespoons. So that might be how you measure your yeast. So, but let me grab my yeast here. I buy my yeast by the pound. And I do put it in these glass jars, because when you put it in a glass jar, it doesn't have the water pour back in, it doesn't sweat, and it doesn't make your yeast go bad. If you put it in a plastic container, that's what it'll do. So put it in any type of glass jar, and you can have a pound of yeast that will last you a whole year. After that, throw it out though, because it starts to go dead. So let's check how much yeast we need. A tablespoon. So this is a tablespoon. Use measuring stuff, and we're gonna scoop it and shake it, all right? And then we drop it in here. See? No proofing the yeast. Didn't I tell you that? No proofing the yeast. All right, and then so we have flour, sugar, yeast. Now we need the vanilla pudding mix, and I opened the box of pudding mix here. I've been using out of it since yesterday. This calls for 1.5 tablespoons, and in the recipes in my book, because I have to write the book according to how the people who are making the book for me wants me to write it, so I can't spell out tablespoon. I have to put capital T for the abbreviation for tablespoon, and then for teaspoon, it's TSP period. 1.5 tablespoons. So 1.5 tablespoons of the vanilla pudding mix. You can use dry powder mix like Nido or Klim or the fat-free stuff. You know, if you're not lactose intolerant, you know, go ahead. I like this because it has a beautiful flavor and I think it makes the thing moist, all right? So this is just store brand instant pudding pie filling mix. Okay, let's see what else we need. The pudding mix. The vegetable oil is going to be 2 tablespoons plus 2 teaspoons. Why? Because the full recipe calls for 1/3 cup, and when you're going to have 1/3 cup, that's what it is. So I have this here. Let's measure the 2 tablespoons. This is a big bottle. And this is what I do when I teach my private classes. We go through step by step how to measure, okay? So you might want to sign up for the next one that I'm going to do. I did a poll and pretty much everybody was saying that they wanted me to teach them how to do powder buns. Okay, this doesn't have teaspoons right here. It has 3 teaspoons, so let me not take a chance on that. Let me measure. I'm showing you these things because you can buy these things at Walmart, you know? And you can go ahead and have these things for your kitchen. They're not too expensive, especially if you pick them up, you know, when you go in one at a time. So 2 tablespoons plus 2 teaspoons. You watch me? Vegetable oil. Just pour it in there. And then it's 1 cup of warm water. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn the faucet on and make the water get hot. Run my finger underneath it, and once it's getting ready to burn my finger, that's when I know it's hot enough. If not, if you're like in Belize or any other country where you don't have hot running water, then go ahead and just heat it up in the microwave for about, I'd say 20 seconds, and then feel it to see if it's going to burn you. So let me grab that cup of water, okay? And when we had a print shop, I had an account where we had to print the measurement like this on a little bottle. And I was the one that had to measure the 30 milliliters to see if that line was correctly printed. Because if we printed it wrong, too high or too low, it would not be the correct measurement. Did you guys ever think about that? When these things are printed on here, they have to be accurate. So I was the scientist that had to level off everything and make sure that everything was correct. And it was a hard job, guys. We used to do 5,000 in that bottle. So now just pour the water in here. And you can get like the handle of a wooden spoon, like this to stir. You can use a spatula, the handle of the spatula to stir. But what I'm going to use right here is this thing. I can never remember what this thing, I think it's called a spurtle. Like myrtle, a spurtle. So this is given to me by my friend Cindy. So give this a stir. So in a sense, what we're doing here is activating the yeast with the warm water and all that sugar. That's why we didn't put the salt yet. And we're making a starter, but it's not going to be a starter, of course, because we're going to use this in 15 minutes. The original recipes say to let it sit for 10 minutes, but honestly, 10 minutes wasn't long enough. The 2 times that I tried it, it wasn't long enough. Now, we're not going to light the oven yet, but when I come back after the 15 minutes, I'm going to be lighting the oven then because we're going to move fast. You're going to see how fast we're going to move. So, yeah, this is well incorporated. You're going to hear that a lot in cooking too. Make sure it's well incorporated. You know, I did not know a lot of these cooking terminology when I started. I went to St. Catherine's Academy back in the late 1970s and early 1980s. I left in 3rd form when my parents brought us to America. And I took commercial. So I did cooking. I sucked at sewing. And now I'm trying to sew. Look, me and Joe made this shirt. I'm trying to sew because my mom was a good seamstress. Okay, I'm going to cover this up with a dish towel. And then when I come back, we're going to be making the cinnamon sugar. So we have 12 more minutes on the clock before the 15 minutes expires. So we're going to be making the cinnamon sugar, all right? Now, there's no real science to making cinnamon sugar. And I like to make some and just have it set in the pantry. So right now I'm going to do, let's see what 2 tablespoons of the granulated white sugar looks like. I think we need a little bit more. 3 tablespoons. And then to that, I'm going to start off with 1 teaspoon of the ground cinnamon, okay? This is that good Costco brand ground cinnamon. Oh, it already smells like I want to eat. Let's start off with a tablespoon. And let's whisk. Now, if I'm going to be doing mini recipes, I think I should start buying mini things to whisk with. What do you guys think? Okay, I think that looks good. I don't want it to have more cinnamon than the sugar. So 3 tablespoons to 1 teaspoon. And I believe this goes for any of the recipes that we're doing for this bread. You're just going to have some leftover. Just put it in a jar and put it up, all right? So let's set this out the way. So in a sense, monkey bread is kind of like a cinnamon bread. So let's put this away. Now let's take care of the topping. We're also going to have a glaze topping, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to, okay? So let's start. This topping is needed. All right, so this is brown sugar. The original recipe calls for ½ cup of melted butter. So because we're doing half the recipe, I'm going to start with a ¼ cup of melted butter and mix it with the sugar and see what we get. See if it's going to fit on the bottom because it has to cover the whole layer of this pan. So we might have to tweak it and do a double recipe. So let me get a bowl to put this in and we're going to nuke it in the microwave for like 15 seconds. And when you're nuking it, don't put the sugar in it, okay? It's just the butter. All right, so that's melted properly. Okay, so I'm gonna do a ¼ cup of the brown sugar tightly packed and see what that gives us in here. We want it to be a little bit thick. So I want you guys to be able to adjust things as you're doing stuff. Don't just stick to what I'm doing. So that's a little bit too thin. So I'm going to do another ¼ cup. So this is ½ cup of the sugar to ¼ cup of the butter. Okay. You guys know I'm testing this recipe on camera, right? Okay, see? Kind of like a thick oatmeal type thing right here. Set the sugar aside. Brush off my hands because now I'm going to grease my pan, my 9x5 loaf pan, because I want this to come out easy, okay? We don't have to flour it, but we do have to grease it. So whenever it comes to doughs, you grease it. When it comes to batters, you normally grease and flour. Kind of like a rule of thumb. So it's greased. Now let me go ahead and pour this baby in here. This is going to be our beautiful topping that's going to come out melty and hot, and everybody's just going to want to eat the top of this bread. Did it spread? Yeah, that's enough. I think that's enough for this pan. Of course, if you want it sweeter, do another batch, but I think that's enough. See how it looks? You got it? All right, so set that aside. The cinnamon sugar is already set aside. And now we have 5 more minutes left on the clock. I'm going to clean up this mess because when I come back, we're going to be moving fast, all right? Stick with me, guys. And why do we add the salt after? If you were watching earlier, you remember me saying that the salt retards the activation of the yeast. So put in some flour. You can still be using the handle of a spatula or a wooden spoon, okay, at this point. Remember I said very minimal kneading, if any. No, the original recipe calls for a lot more flour than this. That didn't work for me. It was getting to be too much. So that's why I'm adding it a little bit at a time. Because you never know if you didn't measure the water correctly. See, it's still sticky, see? So put more. Now, if you're a pro at kneading, you might want to get your hand in here at this point, but I'm teaching to people right now that don't like putting their hand in flour. They don't know how to activate yeast. You know, it's just hard. It's difficult. So now this is the eighth, no, not eighth, a quarter cup. Work it in. And me at this point, I'm gonna get my hand in there. Okay? It's very sticky, so I know I need the rest of this flour, so just put it in. And you really can't even call this kneading. You're just gathering. Am I like messing with you guys? Making you pretend like you're not kneading? You're just gathering. Jada's running camera right now. I'm going to ask her a question. Do you think you could do this at this point, Jada? Yeah. Like, oh, you don't like to knead? Mm-hmm. You think you could do this? Okay. And Jada's good at so many things, but she just doesn't like to mess with flour like this. So just keep gathering it. It's still sticky, if you guys can see? But we don't want to add any more flour at this point. Jada's doing dynamic angles. Woo. And remember that I have my website. I was going to say website. My website up and running. It's bearpantryshow.com. You can join my Patreon if you want to see family vlogs. See, it's still sticky, guys. I'm going to go ahead and rinse off my hand, or my hands, so that we can handle this dough a little bit better, okay? I'll be right back. See, my hands are washed and dried. And people will use a bench scraper to like do the dough like that, you know, when you have sticky doughs. You can use a big knife like this to just lift it up, because we don't want to flour it too much. So this is the very minimal kneading that I told you guys about. We're just trying to get a little bit of that sticky out, okay? And you notice it's getting smooth. So put down some flour again. That's the minimal kneading. You guys can do that, right? Don't let kneading scare you. So just press it out. The dough has to relax. It doesn't have to rise. We're just trying to press it out. See how it's relaxing? You got to talk to it. And you can use a big knife like this and just start cutting into bite-sized pieces. Or you can use this thingy if you have one of these. Just eyeball it. Anybody monitoring the time yet? The time to knead it up. And of course it took me longer because I'm talking to you guys than the 15 minutes. In the 15 minutes oh, why did you guys remind me to light the stove? Light your stove before we start doing this. Bake 350 start. Because it moves fast, alright? So that was my bad. You need leave this little piece like this to fill in a gap. You need to light your stove right when you come back and start doing the kneading part of this, okay? I'm just separating everything here. See these bite-sized pieces? Some of them are bigger than others, and that's okay. That's why I put a little bit of flour on the counter, because I knew that it was going to be sticky. And you want this dough to be sticky like this, okay? Because that's what's going to soak up the cinnamon sugar. Come on, come on. It's easier to just separate them now. Okay. So next we get the cinnamon sugar. You put the bowl right here in the center. You drop this first piece in, roll it, cover it really, really well. Drop a piece in there. The other two I did the Bundt pans. This is the first time I'm doing a loaf pan, because when I told one of my aunts about this recipe, she said, I don't have a Bundt pan, but I could find a loaf pan. So you get the idea, right? So see, it's all leveled off. You don't have to give this no time at all to let it rise. But I have to give it some time for the oven to come up to 350. It's at 205 right now, so give it like maybe 4 or 5 more minutes. And then we're going to put it in and bake it for 30 minutes. Alright guys, even though this is not a cake, it's a bread, I still test it with the toothpick. Okay? The recipe did not say to do that, but you know, you gotta make sense out of nonsense. Let's see if it's, see if this is not ready. No, the little mini one went for a half hour. The big one, I don't know how long it went for because I started in the toaster oven first. And then I continued in this oven because I was baking a bun and I couldn't open the thingy. So I'm going to give it 10 more minutes. So that's going to be 40 minutes, all right? We'll be back in 10 minutes. So 10 minutes later, I removed it from the oven and tested it with the toothpick, and it came out clean. Even without the toothpick, I knew it was done though, because see how brown it is? Earlier was a tad too white. So let's flip this baby over. Ooh, got all that stuff draining. I should have put a pan underneath there. I'm gonna scrape out all this with a spatula. This is gonna sit there and get hard. Don't put the glaze yet, it's too hot for the glaze. When I come back, I'm gonna show you how we make the glaze, all right? So that's 2 tablespoons. That's 4 tablespoons. And then for the milk, you gotta put ever so little, because I want it kind of thick. So I'm gonna start off with a teaspoon. 4 tablespoons to 1 teaspoon. I might need more. So that's a teaspoon. I don't know if it's gonna be enough. I'm gonna use a little spoon. Sent to me by my friend Julie. Hey Julie, shout out to you and Chris. This is not gonna pour. So put a splash more. Can't see it coming. Ooh, might be too much. If it's too much, add more powdered sugar. I love the little spoon. Show it, Joe. Joe's running camera for me right now. And I'm using lactose-free milk because you guys know that I'm lactose intolerant, or maybe you don't know that. By the way, guys, pick up your little pans from Amazon. I'm going to put it in my Amazon store and put the link below. This is one of the springform pans. It's 6 inches. This is the Bundt pan that's 6 inches. And then this is the layered cake pan that's 6 inches, okay? Because you're going to want that stuff to do the little things. That's going to be my next book. So let me pull this. I'll put this underneath for the mess. And then go from a height and just drizzle. So I'm gonna pick a little piece of it off just so I can taste it before I go do my thumbnail. Let's pick a piece off. Oh yes, 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 Jesus. Yes. I just licked every finger. I never said I was a chef. I always said I was a home cook. You know why I don't claim that I'm a chef? Because people who go to chef school, they work hard to get that certificate or that degree or that license or whatever. And I never want to detract from that, okay? Anyways, guys, this was amazing. This is the half recipe. I have the quarter recipe. I'm going to list everything in the description below. I'm going to put the full recipe. The baking time for the full recipe is probably going to be closer to an hour because that thing is tall and big. Stick the toothpick and check it. The baking time for this was 40 minutes and for the little mini one was 30 minutes. Okay? So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and let me know if you're watching me on Colorblind TV. Bye! Remember guys, we are not buying this book. Because if you do, the only people that are making money from that book are my ex-distributor and Amazon. Pick up this book instead. This is my Belizean cookbook. It has 120 authentic Belizean dishes that I've done on the show already, but now you can have it in print so you can follow along and your dishes will come out perfect each time. Hot off the presses, this is my second cookbook, guys. It's called The Pantry Laid Bare, and I named it that because I laid everything on the line when I picked the recipes for this book, alright? 111 delicious dishes from basic ingredients. To purchase, just check below on any of my videos and you'll see the different methods of payment and also the shipping. Thanks guys! Won't you come and try this warm delight? This You hear my phone went off just now?